So I think the next one that we had was Stan. You were looking into some more pedestrian level hacking, maybe some things out in the real world that can be done.
Well, it looks like some researcher from IOActive, a company that does these things, he discovered that the traffic control systems that are in use in many places, they use magnetic sensors on the lane to detect what the congestion might be like. He found that some of that communication is susceptible to a few well-known types of attacks because the communication happens unencrypted and plain text. So this reminds me of many times, proprietary type technologies being developed with proprietary protocols, communications protocols. And just because, the manufacturer might think that nobody is looking or doesn't know how it works, that maybe through some sort of obscurity they'll gain, protection. Or maybe sometimes they don't even consider it at all. So they might not even consider that they need to secure this wireless protocol. So in this case, it appears that there's some theoretical potential for attacks that you see in these action movies, kind of being able to stop cars at the intersection or, slow down the way the traffic flows so that maybe an ambulance can get through at the right time. Now, it looks like you'd still need to be in the vicinity of the intersection for some of these theoretical attacks. But I'm sure that, if you look at some antenna designs, clever antenna designs, you could probably extend the range and for an urban area probably be able to hit a few different intersections to, if you were going to do some such attack. So it's a very interesting development. Again, reminds us of you got to think security throughout the whole development of your product, including something as seemingly unconventional as this.
So what are the components of the attack? I mean, what kind of effects can you have on the system?
So it's just a sensor that basically detects that there's cars present or how many, and kind of relays that to another control mechanism. So what you're able to do, that communication works wirelessly. So you're able to probably, because it's unencrypted, you're probably able to spoof that, like the peering ID, say that there's more congestion on the road or that there is less congestion. And by using those kinds of tricks, you could probably fool the control system into thinking that the light should be red or the light should be green. The researcher here who reported on this, he couldn't obviously test those attacks because that would be illegal. And if he didn't have this system and it wasn't an authorized pen test, then that would certainly be illegal. So these are just some theoretical attacks that he described. But very possible, and we've seen that happen in the past with other types of devices that use wireless communications and don't have encryption.
So it's not so much...
And authentication including.
It's not so much attacking the central computer system behind it, but spoofing the signals to the sensors in the ground, if I understand you right?
Yes, that's what it looks like.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what happens, right, is, there's sensors embedded in the roadway, and when a car goes over it, the inductive loop is kind of detects that there's a large metal object above it. And that goes to a device that is, in cities, the device itself is communicating with other devices. And they use kind of a variant of the Zigbee protocol from what I was looking at. And I don't know if you're familiar with that. So I guess the crux of it is if you could inject yourself into the whole protocol scheme of them communicating with each other, you're not really talking to the devices in the ground, but more on the pole there that are communicating with each other. Okay. And so, maybe somebody crafty enough could make something that's just in their car. So when they pull up to the light, it seems like there's a lot more cars in the area behind them and makes the light change faster. You know what I mean?
It's a variation on that old attack. There's that system that ambulances would use, that strobing light, right, that'll allow you to get a green light because you're an actual legitimate emergency vehicle.
Right.
Some people were trying to build those devices a few years ago.
Right. Yeah, and I think some of that is still in play, from what I understand. So there's different ways for doing that traffic congestion, detecting when, cars are approaching intersections and whatnot. So interesting. Mm-hmm. I guess we'll see if anybody plays around with this more. Hopefully not. It's not something you should be messing around with. But obviously, the long and short of it is whoever the various manufacturers behind these systems should encrypt their protocols or have some strong encryption behind the communication
That
to
and
prevent this kind of attack.
authentication to make sure that the sensors are who they say they are.
Yeah, yeah.
Authentication is key, and then the encryption, and the other thing we always say, don't be rolling your own encryption. It's too easy to do it poorly. Let the professionals do the encryption.
Yeah, good advice. Interesting story, because we don't normally talk about a lot of these types of stories that are more in the physical world. We talk a lot about things in the virtual world. This is an interesting physical world example of security. So